I remembered this game I used to play. Nobody at school had it. It was like a clone of one of those famous Japanese games. But it was so cool.
As time passes, it's getting difficult to play arcade games. And if you're a SEGA fan, you shouldn't be surprised that the arcade is a majority of their output. So if you don't have a local arcade, playing their library is difficult. And it still is because I barely see these games in the wild. You have to search for them. I was thinking about calling this series Forgotten Gems, but let's think about this. Is something forgotten if there are still people who have remembered it? That's why today, we're talking about obscure SEGA arcade games. Part 1. I plan to do multiple of these.
If you will not fight, then you will meet your destiny.
Okay, stay with me now. I know everyone knows Star Wars, but I also wanted an excuse to talk about this sick game. This is Star Wars Trilogy Arcade from 1998, developed by SEGA AM Annex, who are a small team of SEGA AM3 employees handpicked by Tetsuya Mitsuguchi, the co-creator of Space Channel 5. Trilogy Arcade is a score-based joystick shooter that retells events from the original Star Wars trilogy. This was around the time they were releasing the special editions of Star Wars and the hype for The Phantom Menace. It contains 4 levels and each of them are based on iconic scenes from those 3 movies. They are separated into difficulty and movie, with the first being the original Yavin Death Star run, then the fight and escape from Hoth, the battle on Endor, and ending the game on blowing up the rebuilding of the Death Star. They captured the look and feel of these movies for their time, and you can even see in the attract mode some well-animated shots recreating certain parts of the movie. This, to me, is more immersive than the arcade attempts by Atari. While they are impressive and fun, especially for their time, this game just really nails the Star Wars feel. Also, the Atari games do not have the original score by John Williams. Unlike the multiple modern Star Wars arcade shooters, this relies more on your accuracy and consistency. The more consecutive shots you hit without missing contributes to a multiplier, so it's encouraged to eliminate all enemies while not firing any strays. And you want to hit these guys fast because some of these enemies barely give you time to react. Seriously, by the final level they give you so many fast enemies to shoot at that you will be seeing the continue screen multiple times. This game is so score-based that the scoreboard lists the top 50 names. Usually arcade games would list the top 10, but they wanted the other 40 players to be mentioned as well. The game itself takes around 20 to 30 minutes to complete, and after the second and third level, you fight a boss as you swing a lightsaber with your joystick to deflect bullets or duel with Darth Vader. Once you figure out what you're doing, it's not that difficult to beat them. This game remains a childhood memory of mine when I'd watch it be played at downtown Disney's Pleasure Island. I was with my family and I think we were waiting in line for something, but I do remember watching Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. And I was just waiting just to see just one person come by and beat Darth Vader on the machine. On that day, no one was brave enough. Until I stepped up. On my mouse and keyboard, 20 years later, and Pleasure Island doesn't even exist anymore. Out of all the games I'll probably talk about on this series, this is going to be the most easiest to find in an arcade, because I do run into it very often in my arcade excursions. And I usually want to stand up, or sit down if it's a deluxe cab, to go in and do a playthrough. One fact before I move on, this game does reference a deleted scene from The Empire Strikes Back. Originally at Echo Base, there was going to be a horror-like scene where some Wampa would infiltrate the base and they would start wreaking havoc. There's a door on the arcade game that has a ripped warning sign, and in that deleted scene, you see C-3PO ripping that sign off the door. Then a stormtrooper tries to open the door to get absolutely mauled by a Wampa. Some pretty cool stuff. But yeah, that's Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. Well known, fun, a bit difficult, but the Force is strong with this one. Am I really ending on that? Holy shit. Slash through the streets of fantasy. This is Slashout. Developed by Amusement Vision, the people who brought you Super Monkey Ball, and of course later. Slashout is a 4-player 3D beat-em-up, and most likely, the gameplay may look familiar to you if you played Infinite Wealth or Pirate Yakuza. And that's because Slashout is the follow-up to Spike-Out. This game is a spin-off in a fantasy setting. In a way, Slashout is the younger, nerdier brother to Spike-Out. The gameplay of Slashout is pretty simple but incorporates RPG elements into the game. Honestly, much better than most modern-day action RPGs. You beat up and slash enemies when you hit them, gems pop out of them, and you can use those gems to level up automatically. Certain enemies will also drop power, speed, defense, and magic upgrades that you can keep, as long as you avoid getting knocked down. The Spike-Out series can be difficult if you don't know what you're doing because you use 4 buttons. Regular attacks, charge special attacks, sidestepping, and jumping. You can easily just not learn the game and slash your way through, but you will get mocked by the more powerful enemies in later levels, or even the Gatekeeper who has particular attacks that give them armor and nullify their attacks. But your special attacks have charge properties. Just hitting an attack button without a charge will unleash a secondary combo, but holding it for a level 2 or 3 results in different projectiles and powerful attacks. You can also charge during a combo and mix button combinations, which will result in different moves your character can perform, like aerial attacks, dash attacks, unique spells, branching combos, uppercuts, and the works. There are branching pathways, so you don't always have to choose the gates the game tells you to. You can break open another door to find another route in the stage, or select your next stage after the boss of each stage. The bosses in this game are unique, and some have a gimmick for beating them. For example, the Lion Cerberus focuses on sidestepping and magic, the Nightmare Girl helps the player understand aerial attacks, and the Medusa Lady teaches you how to throw your controller at 90 miles per hour. Of course, I love the fantasy setting, being a huge fan of RPGs. It's colorful in comparison to the streets of Spike-Out. In Spike-Out, you're limited by being in realistic environments, but here you can go to all these different places with fantasy elements like a sunny castle town, a dark graveyard, an industrial cannon, an enchanted forest. The creativity is endless in this world, and you have enemies like chickens, robots, and spooky skeletons, and dragons. But these characters are reincorporated into a 3D beat-em-up, which makes the game stand out more. It's like stepping out of turn-based gameplay to fiddle around with the mechanics of those games. Kinda like what Kingdom Hearts accomplished on consoles 2 years later. But unlike the console action RPGs, you are left to your own devices and skill rather than relying on grinding. You still have to dodge, be aware of enemies, and hopefully not get comboed by that giant enemy crab that just flashed blue. This game can get very frustrating if you aren't using combos or you're just button mashing, because a lot of these enemies will gang up on you. You can choose between 4 playable characters, and their balancing can vary. Axel is a pretty big dude who has a giant axe who's able to swing it around with no speed caps. Kamui surprisingly being the slowest character in the game, despite being a ninja. And Luna is one of the faster but weaker characters, but I can't deny, the way her hips moves in the intro to the beat, that's pretty baller. Each character is unique and has different spells, and you can press start and a different button to select from 4 different skins. I assume Ryuga Gotoku Studios will include this game in a future title or spin-off, so don't be too surprised to see this game in the next mainline title or a guiding game. By the way, was he even allowed to say this? I thought this would have been perfect for Pirate Yakuza, but we got Ocean Hunter instead, which fits more with the type of game that was. Most likely when RGG puts this in one of their Like a Dragon games, it'll be able to have 4-player just like Spike-Out did in Infinite Wealth. But until then, be prepared to slash out to your heart's content. Get ready to blast off with R-Tune, Ultimate Street Racing. Developed by SEGA AM2, this racing game utilizes SEGA Lindbergh technology, the same that was found in games like Outrun 2, Virtua Fighter 5, and House of the Dead 4. With insights from the creators of Daytona USA, this is the street racing experience that fans who are wishing for a new Need for Speed Underground need to look no further. R-Tune is very easy to pick up and play. It's easy for casuals to play, but has a deep and rewarding system for those who put in the time. Your car is set to automatic unless you shift gears during the countdown. There are 2 boost buttons on the machine despite them doing the same thing. You have infinite boost, so you're encouraged to hit that down for maximum speed. But if you do it when steering, you can lose control of your vehicle. Most of the difficulty of drifting would come down to the force feedback the machine gives you during that, and boosting. So it's a balancing act of turning correctly and knowing when to boost. Despite not having to juggle extra mechanics, these turns get way more difficult in later stages. The game, when set to particular regions, has an arcade card system which turns the game into a single-player experience with progression and achievements. You select a car, can unlock more using gold, and race harder drivers the more you play. The more you play on a track, the more you level up, and the racer AI you face will get smarter. You will even face off against boss characters in their own unique vehicles like Mr. R. Furthermore, the opponents you face on the track all have personalities because they will taunt or intimidate you as you drive with their faces on screen. This game uses the same facial tag that Virtua Fighter 4 used for its characters, and with the stretchy faces and expressions, I can tell. But it has its charm. Because the United States didn't have play cards, the US version just has all the cars unlocked by default. And the game has some skins that SEGA fans will recognize. I mean, you got your Sonic car, you got your Shadow car, you got your Ray from Evangelion car, and... hell yeah! But for the most part, the game is more freeform without a progression system. You just play a race, and that would be it. That was more the American style of playing racing games than actually having to keep up with data or anything. You have to remember, it wasn't like you had regulars going to the arcade around that time. Unlike in Japan. R-Tune is also like if EA paid SEGA to make a new Need for Speed Underground. The style of the game is inspired by the street racing that you'd see in movies like The Fast and the Furious, and also to compete with the respective series racing games that were currently on the market. The soundtrack is so intense and loud, it almost feels like the speakers were gonna blow out just from the car and stage select music alone. Because they incorporate rap actually reminds me of something you hear in like Anarchy Reigns or something like that. Funny enough, some of the tracks from Ultimate Street Racing would go reused in Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown. The Hong Kong theme? Yeah, that's Aoi Umenokoji's theme. So I could assume with all these Virtua Fighter connections, maybe this game takes place in the Virtua Fighter universe? I don't know, ask the Sega Lores guy. Either way, this is an incredible racing game that Sega really missed out on for making a console port on. I could see there being like a story mode, other single player modes with a progression system, multiplayer, there's a lot of potential here. This could have actually done well on Xbox Live or a really nice home release. But for what we got, it's still a damn fun racing game that's fun to play all these years later. Hell yeah, this is what I'm talking about. This was too hot for the home. This is too spicy. Developed by SEGA AM1, this is a rail shooter that is a one-on-one fighting game. You heard me right, a fighting game. You have multiple characters with unique guns and abilities, an arcade/story mode, and a double-screen machine. Perfect for a standoff showdown against the androids that occupy this world. Like previously stated, Too Spicy is designed as a 1v1 fighter, so not only do you have your light gun, the machine has left and right pedals to move from cover, and mechanics that can give players the upper hand. Each android has their own properties with their own selected gun. Selecting who fits your playstyle is key, as maybe you would prefer to have more health but less ammo, or nimble with plenty to spare. Players use cover and they aim to their advantage as you and your opponent pop in and out of cover. The environment can also be used to catch opponents off guard, or destroy their own cover, leaving them open for fire. You can double tap a direction to do a dive, as well as hold the gun steady to get a sniping shot. And depending on the location, some areas have items that you can use to get a one-up on your opponent. The two shooters are using mind games against each other as you bob and weave out of each other's bullets. It's like reenacting an action movie like The Matrix or John Wick within a SEGA arcade game. It's one of the most unique and interesting rail shooters I've ever played due to its competitive nature, deep and thoughtful mechanics, world building, and the game just oozes style. This continues into the menu as the urban style is ever present in the tutorial video, menus, and character select. And of course, there's a man telling us the name of the game, multiple times.
Too spicy, too spicy, too spicy, spicy, too spicy.
In Too Spicy, all the androids are trying to get the inheritance of a man named Shadow, as they have their own dreams and how to use the money. Each character has their own story mode which differs from their playstyle, and they have their reasonings for going after the inheritance. During the story mode, you are given objectives during fights and minigames with what's going on in the current story. There's so much variety in the story mode for how they differ from each other. There's some hidden lore if you look deep enough into the story, and the fact that there's a code that unlocks some extra characters that adds to the mystery. Maybe they had a sequel planned. Either way, confronting the boss in arcade mode isn't too bad, but in story mode, prepare yourself because my goodness, his multiple forms are relentless. He gives you everything he has, and he's broken as hell, which is probably why Shadow isn't playable. The story mode also ranks you depending on how much damage you took, lives you lost, or retries. It does adjust the difficulty to give you a bone, but it can be so frustrating when you were just right there, man! It will probably take you a few tries, but once you do, you're ranked on your spiciness, and when you finally get to the ending, to end off this super serious post-apocalyptic shooter, all the androids get what they deserve, in a kind of fun way. Too Spicy is the reason I wanted to start this series. Games like these were in the arcade and got some fans, but they tend to be forgotten about later down the line. It's not completely forgotten. Carnage even did an entire video on this game, and honestly, you should check it out. But imagine if this had more fans, like a port to consoles, online play, merch, and all the works. It suffered the same fate as other SEGA arcade games, but hey, games like these will never die if there's someone here who can talk about it. And at least I was here to tell you now. Because this shit isn't just fire, it's spicy. Too spicy.